Do you dream, Elliot? You scraping so hard like you ain't never asked yourself this before. I said, do you want to be here right now?
If we hit their data center just right, we could systematically format all the servers, including backup.
That would erase
all the debt we owe them. Every record of every credit card, loan, and mortgage would be wiped clean. The single biggest incident of wealth redistribution in history.
I know what she's going to say.
I'm your
Sister.
I will never leave you. I will always be right here. You understand that? They're not going to break us apart again.
Existence could be beautiful or it could be ugly. But that's on you.
surrounded yourself with a constant reminder of mortality.
There's much work to do. How do I take off a mask when it stops being a mask? When it's as much a part of me as I am.
Your revolution is only allowed to happen because it was bought and paid for by people like them.
You beg. It's the only way out of this, please.
Remove all emotion and you'll do just fine.
How do I know which one's for me?
Dream. You gotta find out the future you're fighting for. Sometimes you gotta close your eyes and really envision that shit, bro. If you like it, then it's beautiful. If you don't, then you might as well fade the fuck out right now.
You are the storm. And it's the rest of the world that needs to run the cup.
Why didn't you say anything?
You're manipulating me.
Just pull the fucking trigger!
She's gonna die. Darlene's gonna die. She's gonna die. We are God.
No! I also know how to move whatever project.
I'm the only one that exists.
What are you talking about, Elliot? I was there. We were in your room looking for a camera when Dad came home. For some reason, you freaked out and told me to go hide in the closet. Then Dad came in the room and all of a sudden you, I don't know, you just snapped. Elliot.
Everybody. And we have more than enough to take care of all the American citizens. So it's been a great success story on testing.
To fight for the American public as hard as we do. And I thank you for your leadership on all accounts and delivering for New York in what truly was a phenomenal way.
Thank you, Lee, very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. President. Warren Davidson from Ohio. Definitely an honor to be included on this task force and be here really to work with you to help this transition to greatness. Every single one of us wants to protect public health, and we're all anxious to grow our economy and get it back. But we all swore that same oath I swore in the Army to support and defend our Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic. So we take that very seriously, and the civil liberties that have been infringed upon, the sense of freedom and the sense of identity as Americans that's under attack in this era. Having the Department of Justice say we are going to defend freedom and lead that example is a big deal. And as we confront all these ideas on how to deal with safety, it's important to remember that even the Patriot Act expansion, it was just temporary. It was supposed to expire. And a lot of those same sense of urgency that came in after 9/11 led to the expansion of the FISA and the Patriot Act and the way it was abused against many people and very publicly against you was really just to keep us safe and just for now. But we still haven't really been able to reform FISA. We still have a chance to do that. But the temptation is always, but just to keep us safe. And some of the ideas with privacy, just to keep us safe at the CDC, tracing and quarantining and tracking everybody, it could be just as dangerous. So I think it's good to safeguard against that. And then I think the last thing is we're talking about VE Day. And the last time the planet had this much debt was after World War II, after the United States. So the Fed has been tremendous in trying to provide stability in the face of governments largely closing our economy. So we did owe it to people to try to provide the stability that we did. But most people realize that you can't print an entire year of GDP. So we do have to be cautious about unsettling the monetary system. It's worked great for us since Bretton Woods. We have been the world's reserve currency, and we wouldn't want to give that up by being foolish with the amount of printing we're doing, because it's not being lent. There's no lender. We're not really borrowing it. We're printing it. And that's undermining the value, the full faith and credit of the United States. We have lots of countries doing that around the world, and the dollar still is the strong one. But we should be cautious to think that we can somehow do this in an unlimited way. So thanks for the things you're doing and the leadership you're doing, leading by example, and it's an honor to be part of it. Thank you.
Thank you, Warren. Thank you very much.
Back to America Uncovered, I'm Chris Chappell. Large parts of the U.S. economy are still shut down because of the coronavirus. Now, 3 weeks ago, we told you how the Federal Reserve was planning to print money to jumpstart the economy. Has it worked? And in particular, how well have the Fed and various government agencies helped small businesses? Matt Gnazda is back with more. Matt?
Thanks, Chris. A few weeks ago, I said that the U.S. economy was facing two major crises because of the coronavirus lockdown. The first is the Main Street crisis, with small businesses shut down and people out of work. The second is the Wall Street crisis, where the stock market tanked and investors lost billions. Well, I've got good news and bad news. The good news is Wall Street is back, baby! The stock market is making a quick rebound. That's largely thanks to the bailout from the Federal Reserve, aka the Fed. Investors may have lost billions of dollars after the coronavirus lockdown, but the Fed is printing billions of dollars to make up for it. A regional Fed chairman explained this process on 60 Minutes back in March.
Can you characterize everything that the Fed has done this past week as essentially flooding the system with money?
Yes, exactly.
And there's no end to your ability to do that?
There is no end to our ability to do that.
Now, the Federal Reserve is the group officially tasked with issuing U.S. currency. It's not actually a government agency, even though it sounds like it is because it's called the Federal Reserve. It merely has a government mandate. The Fed is supposed to be working in the public interest, but ultimately it's a private corporation made up of bankers that acts independently with no public oversight. Well, it's a little more complicated than that, since the U.S. president appoints the board of governors, and okay, that's not a rabbit hole I want to go down in this episode. At any rate, the Fed is bailing out Wall Street by flooding the system with money. I spoke over Skype this week with Thomas Wade at the American Action Forum, a conservative think tank. He told me that the Fed has injected more than $1 trillion into the economy since mid-March. Things like buying corporate bonds, propping up the stock market, and much more.
Good afternoon, Mr. President. Scott Perry from Pennsylvania. I want to first thank you for acknowledging those NCAA championship wrestlers from Penn State. Jim Jordan, of course, as you know, is a big fan of those Penn State wrestlers. Mr. President, thank you so much for your bold, visionary, decisive leadership. It has made a huge difference in Pennsylvania, in the district I represent, and across the Keystone State. The PPP in particular saved countless jobs. It has been a lifeline for the small businesses across the country, across our state, and of course running it through the local banks, getting government out of it, letting the banks, our local community banks handle that has been it's because that's who people know. They have a relationship, and the bankers, of course, know them. And so that's worked really well. But I will tell you, in the transition to greatness, what I don't think we did envision is the same bold vision and leadership that you have had in some of our state governors. And right now, just last night, our governor announced that we in Pennsylvania are going to stay locked down until June 4th. Mr. President, our businesses are dying, and I don't know what. Look, you know, we shouldn't have to make this choice. We're Americans, and we can do two things at one time. You have proven you can do many things at one time and be effective. We have about 65% of our deaths in Pennsylvania happening at elder care facilities, at assisted living facilities, not in hospitals, but at these elder care facilities. The PPE is going to the hospitals, the money a lot's going to the hospitals because we shut them down. The governor's made a choice, instead of helping some of these elder care facilities, we have a website where people can snitch on their neighbor who's going to work or who is opening their business in contradiction to the order. That's not bringing anybody together. So a couple things. Extending the PPP, the 8 weeks, until after the governor opens the state, because employers now don't want to have to pay for employees who are not going to be able to come back to work, right? Because the state is shut down. You didn't do that. The governor's done that, right? So the transition to greatness, I think, might include something like that. Finally, in this transition to greatness, Mr. President, China, once we get through this, there must be an accountability. There must be an accountability. We all want to get back. We're here. We're ready to be at work. Speaker Pelosi apparently is not, but if she is going to do phase 4, she's working on her own. She doesn't involve our leadership. She doesn't involve Kevin. She doesn't involve anybody here. Mr. President, the prescription to get us back to work and healthy as an economy, quite honestly, is simple. And you already know it. You've already talked about it a million times. Let's just get back to work. Let's just get back to work. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you very much. Great.
Thank you, Mr. President. Greg Murphy from Eastern North Carolina. I appreciate your strength. I appreciate your persistence. I'm a surgeon, and I appreciate decisiveness. It's been nothing but a merciless last 4 years that Schumer, Pelosi, and her cabal have essentially tried to undo the 2016 election. I've only been in politics a relatively short period of time, but it's obvious to me that there are people in this country who hate you and hate this administration more than they love this country, and they will see it torn down. This crisis has highlighted this. We thought that this possibly could be a way of bringing our nation together, but unfortunately partisan politics has ruled the day. This has been building a plane while we've been flying it. I think that's a very good analogy, but the plane is built and it's time to land. It's time that we made decisions based upon fact, not fiction, not fear-mongering, not cartoons by the media, but truth. And wouldn't it be nice to get the truth? We believe enough in our American people that we believe in what they can think.
I just want to connect a dot or two. Kevin was talking, Kevin Hassett, my friend and colleague. We were in the Oval last night talking about these are temporary job losses, probably 3/4 of them, if not more. If you had told me that I would go on the air on a day when we lost 20 million jobs and the stock market would go up 400 points, that would have been very interesting. I've been around a while. I thought I'd seen it all, but this is a new wrinkle. I don't want to repeat this experiment, but I'm just saying.
Thank you, Mr. President. I want to thank everybody around the table. I've had the opportunity. So thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Steve. I appreciate it very much, and you've done a great job. So we're looking at the transition to greatness, and I think it's starting right now. It's really what it is. It's a great term. It just came out at this meeting. That's right. It came out by accident. It was a statement, and it came out, and you can't get a better one. We're going to have a little meeting after the media goes. Do you have any questions, John?
Can you bring us up to speed about the member of the Vice President's staff who is now testing positive for coronavirus? This is now the second staffer in the West Wing.
Yeah, well, I don't know much about it. Does anybody want to talk about it? She's a wonderful young woman. Katie, she tested very good. And then today, I guess, for some reason, she tested positive. So Mike knows about it, and Mike has done what he has to do. I think he is on an airplane going to some faraway place, but you'll be able to ask him later on. But they've taken all of the necessary precautions. I understand Mike has been tested, Vice President, and he tested negative.
Mr. President, but if this can happen here at the White House, 2 people tested.
Can happen anywhere. You see where it happens.
Confident going back to work?
No, because, well, then it would happen anyway, whether you did go back to work or whether you didn't go back to work. In fact, I saw a statistic come out of New York yesterday that was pretty strange, that most of the cases are coming from apartments and coming from homes. What was that all about? I think they said 66%. Did you see that? That was given by Governor Cuomo, that they're coming out of the home, right? So it can happen anywhere. It's a very elusive enemy, a vicious enemy, an elusive enemy, and I think more importantly than anything with this one, it's probably the most contagious enemy that anybody has seen.
Mr. President?
Yeah, please.
With 2 positive tests in the last 2 days, what precautions are you taking here at the White House to prevent the virus from spreading further, and are you worried that it's kind of already in the White House? And
Well, I'm not worried. No, I'm not worried. But, you know, look, I get things done. I don't worry about things. I do what I have to do. We've taken very strong precautions at the White House. But again, we're dealing with a invisible situation. Nobody knows. When I see that 66 in New York, 66%, where people stay home and that's where they're catching it at home, who would ever think a thing like that's possible? And the fact that you have it doesn't mean that it doesn't go away. All right? You can have it and get through it very easily. Some people have a harder time. Most people get through it. Some people are devastated by it. But the fact that you get it doesn't mean, I've had numerous people say they have it, and a couple of days later they're better. Some people say they have it, they think, and there's almost no symptom. Other people have it and bad things happen. So, but for the most part, when you have it, you get better. And supposedly you're immune, although they're not 100% sure about how long that immunity lasts.
And is there, Mr. President, is there a reason why people just aren't wearing masks at the White House?
Well, they are. People that people that are serving me are.
We have not seen anyone wear a mask around you for the last 2 weeks.
So I can speak to that. You know, as we look at this, the people that are in close proximity.
Mr. President, you said recently that you would, if necessary, be the first person to get a vaccine. How important do you think the vaccine ultimately is?
Well, I didn't say I wanted to. That's not a correct statement. I said, you said, would you be? And I said, if it was good for the country, I'd be. And if it was bad for the country, I'll wait to be the last one, or I wouldn't do it at all. The thing on Nancy Pelosi that was so incisive. Did you see that? He did something that was so incredible. And I actually pinned it on top, right, Dan? We pinned it on top. You were fantastic. Have you done this before?
Yeah, he did his own time. You should share more.
That's true.
Mr. President, about Lieutenant General Michael Flynn, he pleaded guilty twice and admitted before God that he had lied. How does that comport with your present position?
Well, I'll just go, and these guys can give you a better answer than I could, most of them in this room. But I'll tell you what, number one, they played the son game. We're going to go after your son. And number one. And number two, the FBI guys, as I know it, and I found out at Devon, they didn't think he lied at all. They said he didn't lie. They didn't know what they were talking about. And Mueller's group, Mueller's gang, that didn't find that I did much, did they? After wasting 3 years. But Mueller's gang of culprits, they said he lied. But the FBI, in this case, said he didn't lie. What's the story of that, Devon?
Well, you have to remember that this is a 30-some-year veteran of our military who headed the Defense Intelligence Agency. It would be preposterous to think that he was a Russian agent, and everybody in the press knew this. They had early versions of the dossier. They knew the Democrats were pushing the dossier, and the fact that someone would even ask this question about General Flynn, who was clearly, he was exonerated on January 4th before you were even sworn in to office. We know that from the FBI agents who were reviewing the case. I'm not even sure it was properly predicated to review General Flynn in the first place. You know, there's a lot of people in this town, in the swamp, that all of these people in the media know that work on behalf of foreign agents and aren't registered. And General Flynn, who's a 30-year war veteran, the way that he's been treated, the way his family's been treated, the way that he's lost his livelihood, he lost his house, and I think the American people owe him a debt of gratitude, and this government owes him and his family an apology.
Do you have anything on Flynn?